Hey legends, and welcome back to the least knowledgeable sim racing channel, where they've actually cut us a break for once. My heartfelt gratitude to Studio 397 for providing their upcoming Ferrari 48 GT3 EVO a few days before release, and perhaps for the first time in my life, allowing a situation where one of these videos wasn't preceded by a panic attack, followed by desperate flailing to get a video out before the news cycle became cold. The great news here is that I've had a few days to sit with this car and can give you a better idea of what to expect rather than just a first drive impression style video like what we did with the recent GT3 BOP update. This is doubled up by the fact that this car shares its chassis with my favorite car in all of sim racing, rFactor's 488 GTE. This creates a rare situation where, for the first time ever, we may live up just slightly above our tagline of least knowledgeable sim racing channel. In fact, it may even promote us to guy that has no idea what he's talking about but is at the very least comfortable talking about it status. Some background first. Around 3 years ago, Studio 397 released their debut GT3 Power Pack, bringing the world of GT3 racing officially to the rFactor 2 platform. Since then, we've seen the GT3 Challengers Pack, followed by the new Bentley Continental GT3 2020, which came out a few days ago. These have all thankfully been consolidated since into the one singular GT3 Pack DLC. The release of the Ferrari 488 GT3 tomorrow will round out rFactor 2's total collection of official GT3 cars to a whopping 13. The 488 will arrive with 4 liveries on September 30th for a price tag of €499. While there are many sim racers out there who are very discerning with their spending, coming in at the cost of a coffee, this car certainly challenges the more, financially liberal sim racing titles out there for sheer value. While the cost might make it a no-brainer if you're a GT car fan, we're still going to delve in all the same and show you what you'll be getting for your $499. Before we get stuck into it, be sure to join us on our official Sim Racing Legends Discord channel down below, and maybe consider subscribing and ringing the bell if this kind of content interests you. A little birdie tells me we may be a little closer to the rFactor sphere than we once were, and we may be bringing you more exclusives and interesting behind the curtain content than we have in the past. For this test, we'll be emulating the recent IMSA race at Virginia International Raceway with a mixed grid of GTE and GT3 cars. And just to throw a spanner in the works, we're cranking the AI up to the maximum of 120, so it's sure to at least be fun. Ah, you thought we were going straight to the race, did you? Not quite. We've got some whiteboard stuff to get through first, but it won't be long, and you guys will thank me for it down the track if you try this car. So we're doing some quick setup work, dropping the fuel load to only what we need, dropping the rear wing by 1 point, and upping the radiator tape. Now what we're going to do is drop the suspension spring rate down by 1 point. We're going to drop the fast bump and rebound down by 1 point front and rear. We're increasing the rear slow bump so the car kind of pivots out a little bit more on us on power, that way we can kind of skate it around the track and gain some time. We're jacking up the Packers, which is basically the bump stop on the front. It's based on a recent tip given by Aris from ACC, where he said that GT3s are set up to basically run off the bump stop the entire way through on the front suspension. We also bumped up the rear toe, and we also bumped up the sway bar front and rear. Front by 1 point, rear by 2 points. And then we've jacked up the negative camber by about 0.4 front and rear, just to make the car a little bit more pivoty, turn in a little bit more. And across the line for our first ever race in the brand new Ferrari 488 GT3 EVO 2020. The question as always is, will we survive T1 with the AI? Oh, the AI is already, it's making its presence felt. It is at 120, so we will forgive that, but we're serious now. No more joking around, no more giving excess space on the turns. And you may be wondering, what does the car drive like? Well, after running through all of the GT3 cars in the game in the recent GT3 BOP update, I can say that this car drives very, 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 very similarly to the 488 GTE, which, if you know me, you know is a great thing in my mind. The GTE being my favorite car in the entire game. This car drives sort of like a scaled down version of it that's a bit easier to control. You can mash the brake, the ABS kicks in, you can kind of lean on the assist a little bit more, and you have The most distinct feeling is a little bit less torque coming out of the corner exits, which I definitely feel chasing these GTEs here. If you probably noticed this, if you have an astute eye, I am wedged in between a grid of GTE cars here. Oh my god! Oh, this AI. I don't know what the hell that was, but the Porsche thought that was a parking spot for some reason. Anyway, moving right along. Still wedged in the field of GTEs. For some reason, even with the AI set to 120 on Virginia International Raceway, I still qualified right at the front of the GT3 grid, I think in 5th place somehow. I have no idea how. Got a time of about 1:43.2 or something to that effect, which is insane. That's only 2/10 off my quickest 488 GTE time. Not sure what that's all about, but I'm not complaining, certainly. But it puts us in a bit of a different league, so I'm here chasing cars that are a class higher than me right now. Could be a few reasons for this. Could be that the AIW of this track, so the AI pathing and the general difficulty levels weren't quite dialed in by Reza when they developed this track. The other reason could be that the BOPs between the two classes may still need a bit of work. I remember when I watched the IMSA race, the GT3s, or the GT Daytonas as they call them, were lapping in the, I believe, 146s or 148s, whereas the GTE cars were doing about 142s solid as race pace. And I know that the GTEs, for me, when I drive them with my limited skill set, definitely aren't in the 142s with a full tank. They're more in the 143s. So there seems to still be a bit of an intermingling between the two classes in rFactor. Alright, so chasing them down lap 2, what you're witnessing here is my quickest ever lap in a GT3 car around Virginia International in rFactor. Now, part of that is owed to the amazing slipstream I'm getting from this whole train of GTE cars in front of me. No complaints there, but one thing I definitely feel is as much as I may close in on them on the corner entries, they always get me on the corner exits. They simply have more torque in their class, they're able to put the power down better than I can. And though they may have less confidence going into the corners, they always get me on the exits. The coming down here, always a very exciting prospect, downhill slalom with the S's. The AI struggling a bit in their little choo-choo train. So, talking a bit about the car itself. Visually, obviously, very reminiscent of the 488 GTE. Some small minor cosmetic changes. The interior, as far as I am aware, is almost identical to the GTE car, at least from what you can see. There we go, the 143.1. So to this point, this is currently the quickest time I've set at Virginia International in a race. For me, that's pretty decent. Anyway, moving on, the interior is, to me, basically identical to the 488 GTE from what I've seen. To those of you who play this in VR, do let us know down below whether you've noticed any differences looking around the cockpit. Whether old 397 have taken a bit of a shortcutty on us. Whatever the case, I'm having a great deal of fun in this car. It, again, is like a more... It's like the 488 GTE with some extra training wheels, you know? I mean, how do you complain about that? If I were teaching a friend of mine how to drive an rFactor and they wanted to learn the GT cars, I would probably put them in this thing first. Either this or the Callaway Corvette, which is not what we're bearing down on there. That is the Corvette C7R over there. I would have used the C8R, but unfortunately we don't have that in rFactor yet. A beautiful canary yellow. I'm just checking to see whether that overtake stuck, and yes it did. For some reason we keep catching them on the back straight. It's almost as if we're making more power. It's cute for one of you guys to jump in the comments and let me know that yes, we are in fact making more power in this car. So again, in spite of the fact that I'm racing the completely wrong class of cars here, I'm having a tremendous amount of fun following them down. I can't wait to try this on more circuits, maybe ones where the AIW is a little bit more balanced, where the AI is going to use the inside line for blocking and all kinds of more dynamic behaviors. Because I've got to say, this is the very first time I've raced the AI at 120 so successfully. Oh, look at that, the AI is actually making moves on itself. Oh, the Porsche took a place! It's up to second. Now, I can smell the podium from here. I'm just like, I'm still in disbelief that I'm keeping up with a field of GTEs. But I'm wondering whether I can get up into third. Maybe second if things go really, really well. This being, of course, a 5-lap race, so we don't spend... Oh, no! The Porsche's out! Well, provisional third place for us. Thank you very much. And it's taken out everyone behind us, so we only have to focus ahead now. Nice and easy. The best kind of racing as far as I'm concerned. Look forward, not back. So, as we noticed in the lead up to this video, the setup for this car is a little bit different to the GTE, but once you set it up, it more or less handles the same. I would say probably more honestly, if anything, more easily. It's harder to spin out. It's the rear end doesn't want to come out on you when you stomp the brakes. It's extremely stable under braking, this car, which is quite commendable, really. To give it much more of a pronounced oversteer character with the setup tweaks. But I hope you guys find the setup tweaks to your liking. I mean, if you're... if the setup is able to take a class higher than you at the max AI strength, I'd say it's probably a pretty reasonable one. Trying to see how much I can gain here, always trying to stay in the slipstream. I know the moment I lose the slipstream is the moment I'm done. And up to our very last lap. So, hypothesis time. So, you're probably wondering, like I did during this race, like, how can I be racing a class higher than me this closely with the AI jacked up to the maximum possible level? Well, there's a few possibilities. The first is, of course, that Reason may not have coded in the AI pathing and difficulty as they perhaps should have for the official content. The other one for me is the Ferrari factor. So, this is again just hypothesis, but I'm thinking that this might be the way that things went. When it comes to licensing Ferrari, my feeling is that they come to you and they say, "Hey, it's a Ferrari, you make a number one, eh?" And you're like, okay, well, I mean, your car may not be number one, but I still want it in my game. So you kind of accept the deal and you go, alright, this is awesome, this is great. You put the car in and you give it a BOP that utterly shatters all the other cars in that class quite clearly. You know, the heads of Ferrari, their marketing dudes look at it and they go, "Oh, it's a very nice, a number one." And you're like, yeah, Ferrari, number one, fantastic, awesome. And then they greenlight all the materials, you've got the car in the game. And then, you know, when they're looking in the other direction, when they're licensing for another game, you just kind of sneak in a little BOP update, like, you know, like they may have done for a 488 GTE already. Kind of neuter it back down so it's actually competitive in its own class. So that's just my little hypothesis about how things may have gone. And the AMG, of course, doing what it does best, spinning out on the side of the track. Really starting to lap, guys, and they've just given us second place. Oh, and we've ended in second. For some reason, the GTE cars were very courteous, allowed us a position just before we hit the checkered flag. And that's a small race around Virginia International in the brand new Ferrari 488 GT3 EVO. Man, that's a mouthful. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. I mean, just by default, it's my favorite GT3 car in the game, because of course, it's the Ferrari 488. I love this chassis, whether it's an ACC, rFactor 2, there's just something so honest and pivoty, and it's like, what you put in is what you get out. If you're a bad driver, you're gonna suck with this. If you're well, I mean, that kind of defeats the point of this video, doesn't it? I think the car just makes you drive better even if you suck, so we'll just go with that. Anyway, this one's got 2 thumbs up from me. This rounds out the official content to a whopping 13 cars, which is, I think, one of the largest GT car collections in all of sim racing currently. If you enjoy rFactor's handling model, if you enjoy their content, this one's a bit of a no-brainer. Round out your collection, have some fun races in your leagues, and if you guys were at all impressed by the manic flailing I try to pass off as competent driving, be sure to check the Fanatec affiliate link down below. I use a DD1 with Formula V2 rim, and to say it's just made me more consistent would be a lie, because it's flat out made me quicker, and it's made every single sim racing title I play a heck of a lot more fun. Using that link supports this channel, helps us make future content, and ensures the survival of the channel in the long term. So I hope you guys enjoyed that feature. Make sure to join us next time, and until then, I'll see you later.